Hello, and welcome to the Flowacademy build series where we will be learning how to set up an LMS platform using Webflow, Wized, and Xano. If you haven't had the chance to check out the demo for this, I highly recommend that you do, and you'll find the video in the description, and alternatively, you can also sign up for an account and check out the whole thing for yourself. You can get a feel for it, and everything that you see there is essentially what we will be covering throughout this entire series. Now, this series contains 10 episodes, with the first one covering the sign up process. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. First on the list, we have our Notion document, and the link for it is in the Clonable. And this document here contains all the code snippets that we will be using for the entire build. Aside from the code snippets, you'll also find that each code contains a ChatGPT prompt that I've used to get this code to function. Now, a small but important disclaimer, I cannot guarantee that these prompts will work on the first go, because generally it takes a few minutes to sometimes even hours for GPT to get this right. So expect multiple iterations and a lot of back and forth. So that's that for the code snippets. I've also additionally provided some links to GPTs. Well, yeah, so to some GPTs that will aid your Wized and Xano development. I personally have used WizGPT, and all the code that you see here has been generated by that. We also have WizMate and WWX Planner, which are super useful for database planning, or if you need help in creating curl requests and tons of other stuff that this can help you with. And that brings us to the end of this Notion document. We will be referring to this document as we start setting up our Wiz requests and actions in just a bit. Okay, so over on Webflow, let's head over to the page, create an account, since we're going to be building this page out. Okay, now there isn't really a lot to address here. Everything you see here is something that we're going to address as we start setting up our requests and actions over on Wized. Let me just quickly open up the page settings here just to show you that we also don't have any custom code here. We do have custom code involved, but we're going to be implementing that directly from Wized. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that. But the only thing to address is the hidden success and error banner. So if I just open up the the layers panel here. Okay, so we're looking out for this div block here called form validation wrapper. And inside that wrapper, we have a form success wrapper and a form error wrapper. It currently has a combo class of hidden. So just let me reveal that real quick. So yeah, these are the only elements that is currently hidden away and might not be obvious that they are present there. So yeah, so just wanted to point these two out. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back on. So yeah, that's that for the Webflow. So I think we're good to jump over onto Xano. Now over on Xano, once you have successfully installed the Flowacademy snippets, you'll notice that we have a lot of tables. And but for this episode specifically, we're only going to focus on two tables for now, and that is the users and the membership type. So let's jump into the users table first. And I'm going to try to explain through all what each and every column represents and why do we have those columns there in the first place. So you'll notice that we have the magic link here, and this is so in this app we're using a native login. We're using a standard sign up. We're also using magic link login as well. Now we're not going to be focusing on that, but we will be addressing this at a later episode. So let me just click into this, and you'll notice that we have a magic token, we have a magic link expiration, and we want to check if this magic link has been used. Now, in case if you're wondering, at what point are we going to use the magic link? And that is when the user is creating an account, we produce a magic link for them. And then they click on that magic link and we check if that magic link is valid or not. And if it is valid, we then log them in to our system. So that's what the magic link is for. Then we have our secret token and secret token created. This is specifically for the reset password flow. Again, this is something we're going to be addressing at a separate episode. Now, moving on, we have our first name, last name, email, password, which are quite self-explanatory, so I'm just going to skip over all those. Then we have our Stripe customer ID. So in the event that when the user is purchasing or has purchased their membership, we basically get the Stripe customer ID from Stripe API and then store that into our database. Then we have our membership status. So we also check if the membership status is set to active or canceled. Based on that, we kind of decide on the front end if we should let the user get access to the dashboard or should we just simply boot them out. Okay, so that's that for membership status, and then we have membership, which is obviously connected to our other database. So this tells us which plan that this user has subscribed to. So as you can see that this user is subscribed to a yearly plan, and then we have a current period start and current period end. So this also kind of tells us like we also use these two fields to check how long their membership is valid for. And then based on this information, we kind of decide should we let them have access to the dashboard or not. So that is that for the users database table. So let's head over to our membership type here. The membership type is very simple. We have two plans here. We have the monthly plan and the yearly plan, which is basically the plan name. And then we have another here called the API ID, which contains the API ID for the monthly plan and the API ID for the yearly plan. So before I proceed any further, what I'm going to do is head over to Stripe here. Actually, head over to Home. So assuming that you have signed up for a Stripe account, make sure to enable test mode. Once you've enabled test mode, you want to head over to product catalog. So for my test account and for this demo specifically, I've only created two products. We have Flowacademy yearly plan, and then we have the Flowacademy monthly plan. So, creating a product is super easy in Stripe. What we're really after is this ID right here. So, when you use this ID inside and during the time when you're making a request over to Stripe API, and you would need this Stripe API ID so that Stripe understands and recognizes which package or which product you are referring to. So that's essentially what we're doing. So we just grab that ID, API ID. So let me go back here and head over to monthly. So yeah, it's the same story for our other product as well. So you want to copy this API ID and then make sure to paste this into Xano. So that is that for the membership type. Now let's move on to our API endpoint. So let's head over to Flowacademy here. Okay, so we are going to address our auth create account endpoint. So let's get in here and try to understand how everything is set up. Okay, so for our inputs, we have first name, last name, email, and password, just exactly how we have it on the form. Okay, and then on the function stack, for our first function, we have the get record from our users database table. So we're just making we're trying to grab the email from our input and then matching it up on the email column from the database, just to ensure that we're trying to match if the email from the input matches any emails from our user database. So we're returning a variable called users. So we also have a precondition as our second function. So this is just to check if there are any users from the users database matching that email. And we want to make sure that it returns null because we want to make sure that there are no existing emails in order for the process to go through each and every function present. And if the user exists, then we are going to throw up this error message right here. User already exists. Okay. Then we have our third function here, which is the add record in the users database table. So if I open this up, you'll notice that we don't have the user on the dashboard on the database. So we are going to grab all those details and make sure that we create a new record in that database based on the inputs that we have received. So which is the first name, last name, email, and then password. Yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. And now finally, we are on the fourth function, which is the custom function generate magic link Flowacademy. So if I open this up, so we have to insert the email here. That is it, nothing else. But obviously, there's a bit more to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I'm going to head over to the functions here. So when you've installed this snippet, you're going to find all these functions alongside with this snippet. We are currently using this function right here, generate magic link Flowacademy. Now, I didn't build this function out. As a matter of fact, this is basically cloned from another snippet that Xano offers in their marketplace. So if I click into this and show you, so I'm not going to walk you through the entire process here. That is because Xano has already provided a whole walkthrough video on how the magic link works. But just to provide you a general idea of what is happening, this function essentially grabs the email and then it creates a magic link. And that magic link also has an expiry time on top of it. So yeah, that's essentially what this function does. So what you need to be aware of is, of course, you'll notice that we have a second function here, query all record from users. So in your case, of course, for your setup, it might be a little different. So you need to do your due diligence in making sure that, this function is targeting the appropriate database in order for this to work efficiently. So yeah, other than that, everything else stays as is. You don't have to change anything here. That is that for this function here. Now, before I head over to the API endpoint, another thing to point out is that if I take you to the settings here and head over to manage, so for this demo specifically, we have a few environment variables that we need to be aware of. So I'm going to start off with the bottom here. So we have a magic link expiry time, which is set to 3,600 seconds. So what this implies is that because we have magic link, we want our magic link to be valid for an hour. So that's why we have set this to 3,600 seconds. If you want it longer, if you want it shorter, you just have to set the value for this in seconds. So that's what that is for. Then you have a magic JWT secret. So you have to generate a magic JWT secret key by yourself, and then you need to insert that in here. So what we're going to do is, let me show you how you can do that. If you head over to functions here and click on this function here called generate JWT secret, all you need to do is click on run and debug. You click on run, and then what you do is it generates this key here. You need to copy that key and then head over to settings, click on manage, and then paste in your JWT secret key, and that is it. You need this for the magic link functionality to work properly. So that's what magic JWT secret is for. Then we have our magic link redirect URI. Now, if you remember correctly, or I'm not sure if I've actually mentioned this, but when a user creates an account, they receive an email that has a verification link. So when clicking on that link, it takes a user to a page. So that's what that link is here for. So you want to make sure that you put whatever link that you're using for your own application. And in this case, I've also made sure that I've added this parameter here that says token. Okay. So yeah, super important to make sure that you have your token here. And then right at the end of the token, we have our magic link verification token at the end of this URL that the user is going to click. And then we use that token to check if the token is valid. So that's what this redirect URL is for. We have DocuGenerate API key. We have resend Flowacademy. So we're using, so I'm going to get into the DocuGenerate at a later episode, but this is something that we're also going to need at a later stage. Then we also have this environment variable, which is called a resend Flowacademy API. In order to send an email to the user, we use a third-party API service called Resend. Resend is for sending transactional emails. Resend is almost a lot like SendGrid. I personally using Resend because it's just, it's a lot easier to use. Plus, unlike SendGrid, which is still due on verifying my account, I'm having to use Resend as an alternative for the time being. So yeah. Other than that, we also need our Stripe API key as well. So that's something that we're going to be addressing in just a bit as well. So yeah, these are all the environment variables that you need to know about. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So that is that for our function. So that being said, let's head over to our API, back into our auth. I'm going to click on revert all changes because I don't know what changes I've applied. All right, now that brings us to the last function, which is the API request to resend email. So if I open this up, you'll notice that we have a URL. So we make sure that this is the resend email URL. Then we have our method set to post. And then we have this entire setup here that is sending the email to the user. It looks a little gibberish. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and create this from scratch so that it's a lot easier to explain and so that you also get a good idea on how to create such a thing in case if you haven't experienced this before. Let's now go ahead and add a new function here. Yeah, we're going to create an external API request. Okay, so I'm on the resend homepage here. Before I dive a little deep into the API request, so just a few things to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you head over to domains and add a valid domain, or else, I mean, if your domain is not verified, you're not going to be able to use resend. So yeah, make sure to add a domain, have that verified. Once that is verified, you want to head over to emails, and over here you want to click on to API. So clicking on the API here, you'll notice that it already kind of gives us an example of how the curl request needs to be constructed. So we're going to go and copy that curl request because we're trying to send an email, and then head over to Xano. And you'll notice that Xano has this option called import curl. So we're just going to click on that and paste this whole request and say, oh wait, no, not save that, import that. And there we go. So Xano has set up the URL. It has set the method to post. It has our headers set in as well, but the parameters are currently missing. So what we're going to do is go ahead and go to resend. And I'm going to copy starting from this curly braces here all the way to this curly braces right here. So copy that to Xano and just type in JSON. So we want to import this JSON. Paste this in. We'll click on with filters. Please enter. Oh, okay. We can safely get rid of all this. We don't need the headers. We don't have any attachments to use, so we don't need that. So we can also get rid of this comma right here. So all we need is from, to, the subject, and the text for the email, and we are solid. So let's go. All right, awesome. Now, Xano has already set up the from, the to, and the subject and the text that we're going to use for the email. So let's start off with the from. So let's click on to set here. So over here, I'm going to set this to Flowacademy. And because I'm using my domain here, this has to be my email. There we go. So the path is from, and the value is set to Flowacademy hello at Onnice and Gupta. So let's update that. Okay, so next now let's focus on the set here, which is the to. So we have to, okay, let's see what we have here. So we got a push filter here. So what we're going to do is we are going to put in an email, which is basically text, and then add a filter on top of this, and this filter being replacement. We're going to use the replace value. We're going to call it email, and we're going to replace that word with the input email. Now, let me just repeat what's happening here. So we are setting our email to, so this is the recipient who is going to receive this email. So we're just typing out the word email, and then we're applying a filter of replace and targeting the word email, and then we replace that word email with the input from the email input that we are getting from here. So let's say that you're creating an account, this word email is going to get replaced with the actual email, which is your email. That might sound a little confusing, but hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's move on to the next one. So let's set our subject here. So it's going to be quite simple. We're going to call it welcome to Flowacademy. Here is your activation link. So we're just going to go ahead and update that. So there we go. The subject is done. Now we're down to our body here. Okay, now over here, you'll notice that the path says text, but instead of text, we actually need to declare it as HTML. The reason why we need to do that is because we're going to use HTML tags for the body of the email because we have a large link that we need to insert that into a word, which is basically a hyperlink. So in order to be able to do that efficiently, you need to declare the path as an HTML. So I'm going to click on update for now and click here and basically just scroll down, and I don't know why this looks so messy here. So let me just show you what that looks like. So over here, we have this HTML and we have this value. So if I just open this up, you'll notice that we have an HTML tag applied to our body here. So it says, hey, first name, line break, and then we are really excited to have you here in Flowacademy. Here's your activation link. And then we insert the magic link, which is from this function right here, function number 4. We grab that magic link, and then we insert that magic link inside this word here that says click here. So, and then we say, to get your account verified, warm regards, Flowacademy team. Just for this hyperlink functionality, we are wrapping this entire text in HTML tags. So that's the whole purpose of this. And then what we do is that we use the replace filter to target the word first name and then replace it with the first name from the input. We do the same thing for the magic link as well, so that using the replace function, we can easily keep this entire operation dynamic. Now that I've explained that, that kind of brings us to the end of how you need to construct the API for your resend. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this. So I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this function. Actually, oh wow, I actually haven't saved any of that. Okay, great. That is my bad. But hopefully, as I was walking you through that, it kind of made sense. All right, now let's scroll down to our headers. Our headers here are content type application JSON, and then we have an authorization bearer, RE1234. So if I click into this push here, you'll notice that we have the authorization here, and then we use a replace function to target this bit of it, and we actually replace it with our environment variable. If you remember correctly, just moments ago, I did mention this about how we save our API request key in the environment variable. Although I completely forgot how you create your API key in Resend. So I'm just going to go ahead and address that real quick. So you'll notice that we have a separate option here in Resend that says API keys. Make sure to click here, and then you can go ahead and create your own API key. You can call it anything you want, and then you can provide the permissions for it. And yeah, just add it. Once you've added it, it will create that token for you. You copy that token and bring that over to Xano, and make sure that you paste that into your environment variables. So that is that for our Resend API. So I'm going to go ahead, close all this. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So what I'm going to do now is that now that you have a good idea of how you need to construct the API for Resend, let me show you what the response looks like when this is successful or if it's a failure. So we're going to find out right now. Send activation link. And let's run the debugger here real quick. Okay, I need to use a unique email. So let's just use a random email here. Let's run this. Okay, so you'll notice that this is successful. We have our magic link right here. So this is the magic link that we have produced: Flowacademy, auth verify email, token, and then there's the token right there. Then we have our send activation link. So this is the response that we receive from Resend. So, okay, yeah, there we go. So we have we have to, as you can see, that's the email that we've just entered. And then it says, welcome to Flowacademy. Here's your activation link. And then here's the entire HTML. So you'll notice that we have, because we're viewing this from the debugger, it kind of breaks out the entire token link here for you. But obviously, in reality, when you see this from your email client, you're not going to see all this gibberish right here. So yeah, but at least on the bright side, this is working. So as you can see, the headers have returned a response of 200. So this has been completely successful. So yeah, that is awesome. And that being said, that brings us to the end of Xano, and we're finally ready to set everything up on Wized. Okay, so we're finally on Wized, and I've opened a brand new Wized project. So yeah, we're ready to kick things off now. Let's head over to our create an account page. And first on the list, we want to make sure that we add our Xano app here. So let's go ahead and add our app. So let's head over to Xano and create we want to copy this API base URL. We're going to need that. And there we go. That's step number 1 done. Okay, perfect. Next on the list, we have our request. So we only need one request, which is create account. We're going to use Xano for that. And let's copy the endpoint here. Just want to copy that. So this is going to be post. Let me just double check that real quick. Okay, yeah, that is post. Okay, let's set up our URL parameters now. We have first name, and then we have last name. Okay, so we want this right here, and then so this is the input. In case if you aren't familiar with Wized, we're currently targeting the inputs and making sure that we're attaching them to the right keys. That's what we're doing here. And sign a password. There you go. Okay, so now that we have created our request, we can finally start our setup for the actions. Now, the first action that we have and we want to work on is the toggle password icon function. So we're going to set this on event. Now, before I go any further, so essentially what we want to do is we want to make sure that when you click on, so let me just type in some random password here. And whenever you click on this icon here, we want to make sure that this reveals the text. So that's what we're doing here. All right, so we want to set this to page start loading. We also want to add a condition to this. And the condition being that this code essentially should be only functioning when we're on this specific page. So let's open up the general here. All right, so this is auth create an account. So yeah, we want to make sure that this works here. And then we're going to create an action of run function. So I already have the code off screen, so I'm just going to copy that and paste that here. So as you can see, we have the hide and show password. So this is targeting the IOpen, which is basically this icon right here. And we're targeting the input with the ID of password. So let me just head over to Webflow here. So on Webflow, we have this div block called form field input. And inside it, we have another input called, well, basically this is just a div block. It's not an input. This is just a wrapper. But this is the actual input, which is basically the password. So with this selected, if I take you to settings, you'll notice that it has the ID of password. So that's essentially what we are targeting. So if I click here now, you'll notice that we have two elements here. We have I icon open and I icon close. So when you click on open, we have the ID of I open, and same for I close here. So based on whatever element that you're clicking, we want to make sure that the text inside this input is either shown or hidden away. So that's what this code does. So let's see if this works now. So as you can see, this is working, which is amazing. Perfect. Also, in case if you're wondering, how is this happening? We don't have a separate code for toggling between the clicks here, between each of these icons. That's because we have a interaction set on this. So yeah, you'll find this interaction right here, mouse click interaction. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do that. Now, next on the list we have is let's target our sign up loader here. So if I click on X-ray, so it's currently called sign up loader. So we want to make sure that this loader is only visible so when the request of create account is executed, is requesting basically. So let's do that. I'm going to call this sign up loader visibility. So this is going to be an element, and the attribute, let's switch it on, sign up loader. Okay, let's do that, sign up loader. And then we want to target this based on visibility. And we want to return this. So when the create account is requesting, set to true. So when create account is requesting, which is set to true, only then this should be visible. So as you can see now that this is hidden away. So that's great. Now we can move on to the next step, which is the actual triggering our request on button click. So I'm going to call this create account request. And this is going to be also an element, and we are going to target this based on the click on this button here. So this is called sign up trigger. There we go, sign up trigger. And we're going to do this on event of click. And we're going to prevent the default. So set this to prevent default. And then we're going to click on perform request and create account. Perfect. So that is out of the way. Now, next on the list we have is create the visibility for success and error banner. So as soon as someone is creating an account, if it's successful, we want to show the success banner. If it's an error, we want to show the error banner. So let's do that. I'm going to call this set visibility for success or error. Oh, I should call this error banner. Okay, so this is supposed to be an event, and we are going to do this based on attribute. And attribute, let's select sign up trigger. And what we're going to do is basically we are going to use the run function, and we have a separate code for this. So what we're going to do is head over to our Notion document. So wait for this document to load up, and here it is. We have the code right here, set visibility for success or error banner. So let me just quickly walk you through what's happening. We have a selectors all here. So we have the selector for the sign up success. So which is basically targeting based on the attribute. So our success banner has this attribute right here. And then our error banner has this attribute right here. And then our error banner text has this attribute right here. In the event that the sign up process fails, we want to target the error banner and the error banner text. And we also make sure that the code grabs the error message from Xano and then reflects that on the error text. So that's what the rest of the functionality does here. We also have, you remember how we had a hidden combo class as well on our error banner and a success banner. So we toggle that as well. So the code is smart enough to understand that if you had an error banner show up, and then it intelligently hides that away if you try a second time when it becomes successful. So that's what this entire code does. And then we also have this part where it actually listens for the create account request. So whenever the create account is successfully executed, it waits to check if it's successful or error, or if it has failed. So that's what this code does. So I'm going to copy this code and head over to Wized here and just paste that in. That's it. Now we have one last action, and before we start testing this out, so let's call this reset form. So we want to reset the form after successful request. So when the request is successful, we want to reset the entire form. And that's what we're doing. So we're also going to set this based on an event, with the trigger being an attribute. And I'm going to use the same attribute that we used for the previous action. So that is sign up trigger. For the action itself, this is going to be a run function. And again, the code is in our Notion document, so it's this one right here. So let's see what's happening here. Listen for the create account request to be executed. So it's currently waiting for the create account right here. And once it's and if result is okay, meaning successful, it then grabs the first name, last name, email, and password input, and then it just basically resets all the inputs. That's what this code does here. Let's copy that and paste that here. Perfect. So let's reload this entire page. And what we're going to do for the first try, let's try hitting an error on purpose. So I have my personal email here that I'm going to use, which already exists in the database. Okay, so let's try the password here. Okay, now before I hit send, let's see if okay, yeah, we got a full view on the request here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our account. Okay, there we go. So the error banner is working as expected. And if we look at the request here on the payload, it returns user already exists. So we're copying that payload message right here, and we're reflecting that onto our UI. Now, let's say that we use a random email, and this could be any email. Actually, no, let's just use a random email, gmail.com. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that account. Amazing, we've sent you an activation link to your email. Oh, I forgot to address, it also has a neat little function where it stays on for like 2 to 3 seconds and then it disappears. So that is also in this action here, set visibility. So yeah, it's right here. Apply a fade out transition and rehide success message. So that's the functionality that basically accomplishes our animation right there. So now what I'm going to do is, before we end this tutorial, we have a few other things to do, and let's just do a slight cleanup. We're going to create a folder, and we're going to call it create an account. So let's create, yeah, okay. And we're also going to create another folder, and we're going to call this auth. So as you can see that if I open this up here, we have an auth folder, and auth folder has 4 pages in total. So we want to make that clear. So let's have create account nested under create an account. There we go. And then have this folder nest inside the auth folder. There we go. So our auth folder has this create an account. So that's how you know that this page only has 1 request in total. So let's also do the same for here. So in the later episodes, I'm probably not going to be doing this. So I'll be doing this off off the recording sessions. Okay, so we've created this folder, and we're also going to create our central folder, which is going to be auth. So it just kind of makes the navigation and everything a lot simpler. There we go. So auth, create an account. And now for the last step, what we're going to do is create an actual account that we're going to be using this account throughout the entire series. So you can see how this account will grow and it will function, and yeah. Okay, so we're going to use demo 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's go ahead and create our account. Perfect. So amazing, the link has worked. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my email and drag in the window. So as you can see here, that, hey, Onnoy, we're really excited to have you here in Flowacademy. Here's your activation link. Click here to get your account verified. Now, I'm not going to click on this because obviously clicking on this will take us to our verification page, which is something that we haven't configured yet. And that's something that we will address on the next episode. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If you have any queries, please leave them in the comments and I'll get back to those as soon as possible. Till then, see you on the next one. Thank you.